I call to order this meeting at 5:30. Mr. Koenig, can you please take roll call?
Board President Mercado,
Present.
Vice President Ocampo,
Present.
Clerk Jose Antonio Jimenez, Trustee Guadalupe Gilpis Pereira, Trustee Leticia Garcia. Ms. Garcia and Mr. Jimenez are not present.
Oh, thank you. We do have quorum. Mrs. Sanso, can you please lead the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Esta llamada puede ser grabada y materializada.
I pledge allegiance
Pues,
to the flag of the United
¿Me puede escuchar, señor Jiménez?
Permítame, por favor.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Sanso. Spotlight. This is an opportunity to feature up to a 3-minute presentation, the positive things that are taking place throughout the district. Do we have any spotlights?
There are no spotlights.
Moving on to the adoption of the agenda, I need a motion.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Ocampo, seconded by Ms. Gilpas. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Moving to public comment concerning items on the open session agenda and/or non-agenda items. There will be a 2-minute limit for individuals and a 20-minute limit on total public comments. There is no ceding of one's time to other individuals. Individuals wishing to address the Board of Trustees on open session agenda items and/or other items may do so at this time. The starting time is 5:32. I believe we have, would you like to say something in public? Oh, okay. I saw you with the green sheet, that's why. Oh, welcome. Being that there's no public comment, I end this at 5:33. Next, we move to association comments, the LSL Teachers Association. Thank you. Next, we have California School Employees Association, Chapter 577. Thank you. And do we have anyone for the United Substitute Teachers Union? It appears no. Moving on to item 3%. We have a department presentation for Elaine Mendoza, Director of Fiscal Services, for the LSL Union School District's 2022-23 Independent Financial Audit Report.
Testing, testing, good to go. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Montgomery. I'm a partner with Christie White Associates. We're based down in San Diego. This was our first year working with the district, and I just want to start off by saying it's been a pleasure working with Elaine and her team. So just to kind of start out with, just give a shout out to her. The process went really smoothly, getting us everything that we need And, that's just kind of my little shout out to her to start off the presentation. Oh, okay. Sounds good. And with that, we'll lead into the slide deck that I've prepared. Mm. On. There we go. Okay, now we're good to go. All right, so tonight I'm here to present the results of the financial audit for the year ended June 30, 2023. This audit is required annually and is a condition of the district's funding. There are 3 opinions contained in our audit report. The first is on the financial statements. The second is a report on compliance for each major federal program. And the third is our report on state compliance. Our summary of auditor's results is presented on page 86 of the audit report. All right, so that first opinion included in the audit is on the financial statements. And our opinion on the financial statements this year was unmodified. That is the most favorable outcome at the end of an audit, the most favorable opinion that can be provided. And essentially what that means is that the district's financial statements were presented fairly in all material respects for this particular fiscal year that we audited. And what you see there on the slide is a snippet from our report on the financial statements. This is the first 2 paragraphs of page 1 of the audit report. Now, to come to that conclusion of the financial statements being materially presented, we did have to make a few audit adjustments, and that kind of leads us into discussion of our one finding that we had in this year's audit, which relates to internal control over financial reporting with respect to government auditing standards. So what we noted during our substantive testing of various balances of the district's financial statements, we noted several material errors that required adjustment, so kind of required fixing in order for those balances to be materially correct in the financial statements. Those are laid out before you underneath the conditions section there. So adjustments to cash and investments, accounts receivable, due to grantor government, which is essentially an accounts payable balance, the workers' compensation liability, and then also the PARS fiduciary trust fund. So these errors resulted in the district not preparing the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So obviously, not entirely what we would want to see there. So that's why a few corrections were needed in order to get the financial statements to where they need to be to have those balances materially presented in the report. So obviously our recommendation there is to have management evaluate the internal control structure and make the necessary changes going forward that would kind of allow management to implement the adequate reviews, checks and balances, things like that, to prevent, detect, and correct those types of misstatements in a timely fashion. This report is on page 77 of the audit report, and the detail of the finding is on page 87 of the report. And so before we move on to the next slide, is there anything you wanted to add related to the finding? Right. Our second audit opinion is on major federal programs. This is also an unmodified opinion. This report is included, starts on page 79 of the audit report. It's a few pages long. But the gist of this one is that, there were no findings or question costs related to major federal programs this year. The 3 programs that we looked at this year were Title I, Special Education Cluster, and the Education Stabilization Fund discretionary grants, so your ESSER 2 and 3 funds. Obviously, that makes up a very significant portion of the district's federal funding for the year. So, we're really comfortable with the coverage we were able to get there. And so the good news there is that there were no findings, question costs, things like that related to the federal compliance piece of the audit. On the state compliance side, kind of the same story, an unmodified opinion as well. That report is going to be on page 82 of the audit report. It's a few pages long, and towards the end of that, it actually gives a detailed breakdown of all the different state compliance areas that the state requires us to take a look at. So those are issued by the K-12 State Audit Guide. Covers things like attendance, instructional time, teacher certifications, your LCAP, your unduplicated pupil counts, a slew of other things after that. But again, the good news is after going through all those sections, clean audit opinion was issued. No findings or question costs on the state side as well. We did include a management letter towards the end of the report. It's actually the final page of the report, I believe, on page 92. And this relates to capital assets reporting. So it wasn't something that we considered significant enough to be a finding for this year, but something that we observed and we wanted to issue a recommendation for improvement, just related to the timeliness and accuracy of reporting of capital assets balances. Kind of like to see some improvement there, maybe some redesigning and implementing of improved procedures to allow for the accurate reporting of things like capital assets additions, disposals, depreciation, any construction in progress activity throughout the year end or throughout the fiscal year, but also confined to the year end closing process as well, as that information sort of flows into the district's form asset in the unaudited actuals. Again, that recommendation is provided on page 92. I think that's the final page of the audit report. And that does it for my presentation. So at this time, I can go ahead and open it up to any questions if you have any.
Mrs. Gilbert?
Yes, thank you. It always feels good when there's an audit on money and how it's being handled, whether it's at home, your business, and the school district is a business. So it's good to know that it's a positive report on our financials. So I'm taking it, though, that when you're going over this, you have the dollar amounts in all your pages, or is it just the process of how that spending is done that you look at?
So there is a full audit report that should be attached to the agenda packet. And what we're going through is auditing the district's unaudited actuals that are finalized in usually around the September timeframe. So for the fiscal year 22-23, the financials are delivered to us in the form of those unaudited actuals. And then we perform procedures to audit those financials and confirm that those financial balances reported within that report are materially accurate. But we're also looking at the internal control processes that flow into that financial reporting. And then on those compliance pieces that I mentioned, those are kind of separate from that, where with federal compliance, we go through and look at all the various sources that the district receives federal dollars from, go through some sort of risk assessment and other evaluations to determine which of those programs need to be audited this year. Obviously, with that, you're wanting to look for the federal programs that are get you kind of the highest coverage. And then on the state compliance side, again, with that, that's the K-12 State Audit Guide, laying out the procedures that they want us to perform with respect to things like attendance and instructional time, school accountability report cards, unduplicated pupil counts, all sorts of things that are included in there. So it really is a pretty comprehensive audit.
Well, thank you. I think it's good news that Alisal is doing pretty good, because we brag about being transparent to the community and how we're spending funds. So this audit shows that we're doing what we're saying that we're doing. I had a couple more questions. So when there is an adjustment or a correction because there is a mistake, how is it corrected? Just scratched off and you type it over, or what happens? Do you tell Mr. Abbasi and he changes the method of doing or whatever, or how does that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, so when it comes up during the audit, we make a note of it. We go through a few levels of internal review to make sure we're looking at it correctly before we communicate it to management, because obviously management isn't always thrilled to find out about an adjustment. So we want to make sure we have our ducks in a row there. And so once we determine, it looks like an adjustment is needed, that's when the communication takes place. And then from there, that adjustment is recorded in the audit report itself, and it's spelled out separately on a page in the supplementary information section of the audit report. And then from there, We work with Elaine to make sure that that adjustment is posted within Escape, so the district's financial software, to properly adjust the beginning fund balance for the subsequent fiscal year.
Thank you. And then my last question is this a yearly audit that we do? It is, it's a yearly
Yes,
audit?
this is
Thank
our
you.
annual financial audit.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for what I find to be good news that we're very transparent with community and how their dollars are being spent towards their students' education and the programs that we have in place. Thank you very much.
No problem.
And that's all, Mr. President.
Mr. Ocampo, any questions or
Yeah, I
comments?
guess my only question is, I know you were talking a little bit about, internal controls. And I guess one of your audit indicated that we do catch them, but I guess not in a timely fashion. So you're recommending that we put in some new procedures so we can catch misstatements in a timely fashion. I think one of the things you said was maybe set up a system where as people are doing their jobs and they see an error, they can correct the error as they're doing their work. So I'm curious, in terms of our staff, what our staff's position on the recommendations, whether they think they're necessary, whether the staff thinks we need to implement it, or where we are with that, because I know this question of internal control keeps popping up, as I recall at previous meetings, it keeps coming up. And staff always says there's no problem. And I guess there's no problem as long as we catch the error. Now, if we can catch it quicker, that would be an improvement, I think. So I'm just curious where we are with that, or what staff thinks about the recommendations that we make.
So in the financial process, I mean, we receive money and we spend money throughout the year, millions and millions and millions of dollars, and there are countless transactions. When the auditors look at our books, they look at our books as a final product, which is a financial unaudited actuals that we prepare at the end of year-end closing. The internal control you see here, these are the kind of findings or observations that happen during year-end closing, not throughout the year. In our making payments or receiving money, we did not have any mistakes or any concerns. These are the year-end closing entries, which could have been different. And the reason is the timing kept on changing. The money we received from state of California, some of the categorical money, that had timeline that kept on changing, the revenue, the amount, the timing, all of that changed. So that just threw us off. In the area of internal control, it's a huge area. It's not just one small area. Internal control is how we make payments, how many people sign every paycheck and every transaction that we make, how many people are making the transaction. When we hire people, how do we input that in the system? We don't want any kind of collusion between people who are hiring and people who are making payments, payroll payments. So we have to make sure that there's a separation of duties and responsibilities. We make sure that that does not happen. Throughout the year, we maintain those controls. But these are some of the observations that happen at the end of year-end closing. Same thing happened. Our auditors mentioned about 6 items in the internal control. We are going to look at that, and that's actually a good thing for us. That keeps us on our toes, so we can be more vigilant and we can be more prudent about making those transactions. Our staff is very capable, although we had some staffing changes. My friend Elaine here is new, but before that, we had very quick turnovers. That was also one of the issues we have. But Elaine promised to stay here for 23 years at least. So we are sure that we are going to improve on our internal controls. Another observation that auditors make is about the management. That's the last slide, management letter. That's about capital assets. We are not maintaining any listing of capital assets at this point, but we are implementing a new process. Actually, that's one of the board items. Now we are going to make listing of every capital asset that's over $20,000. Our current limit is $250,000. So basically, we are not maintaining any listing. That was a policy that took place very long time ago. That's improvement we are making in our system. So we are always looking at different methods of improving systems, and we stay in touch with our auditors actually for guidance because we don't want any surprise it at the end of the year. We want to stay in touch so they can guide us how to do things. They send us templates, guidance, opinions, so we can improve on things.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you for the presentation. Moving on to B, department presentation, Dr. Susan Radliff, Director of Early Childhood Education.
Good evening. Just figuring out the little. All right, so today I'm going to talk about my department. I'm going to start with UPK. So in 2015, the state had transitional kinder, which we call TK. Now we have a new thing called UPK. All that means is anything before kinder. That means your preschool programs, that means our TK programs. So when you hear UPK, we're trying to move to that vernacular. More alphabet for our, our jobs here at the district. Right now, currently, we have 5 preschool classrooms. They have 198 students total, and we have 14 TK classrooms, and we have 306 children in that. So we have about 500 children that are UPK children. Our early learning program supports the developmentally appropriate practices in TK. I have one TOSA that works very closely with our TK's teachers and staff that are supporting TK. We also support with the targeted after-school professional development for our TK and preschool teachers. They come together for professional development in the afternoon. This year, currently, we have 48 students at Montebella, 40 students at Oscar Loya, 40 students at Cesar Chavez, 35 students at Creekside, and 33 students at Jesse Sanchez. So for 23-24, 5 classrooms, 15 teachers, a secretary, and a registration clerk that work just with preschool. We also have early literacy instructional coaches. The coaches are by site. Currently, I have 7 of those. I have one TOSA that's early literacy. We focus mostly on literacy in the TK through 2nd grade, 3rd grade. And then I have one TOSA, the early learning programs, and she works a lot with our preschool and TK classrooms. I currently have an early education math grant. We're doing a lot of math professional development, and then I'll talk a lot about the early education teacher development grant in the presentation. So in 24-25, we are, as we increase in TK students, we shrink our preschool classroom. When we talk about a 4-year-old, it's a 4-year-old, whether we put them in preschool or we put them in TK. A 4-year-old is a 4-year-old. In the past, TK was only for 3 months of the year birth date. And as we increase more TK students, we shrink our preschool students. So we're still serving the same, we're actually serving probably more children than we have in the past. But as we shrink our preschool students, we're increasing our TK students. So currently, for next year, we're going to start with 48 students at Oscar Loya. This group will move to Buckhorn as soon as we have the licensing and we're able to get in there. It's close enough, we're going to move directly into the new building. Then Creekside will have 48 students, and Jesse Sanchez, we're going to start the year with 48 students. When Buckhorn opens, those families will be offered Buckhorn or to stay at Creekside. What we have found is our families that go to state preschool are income eligible, so they're low income. And a lot of those families, if they already start at Sanchez, they're going to say, I can't drive all the way to Buckhorn to get my student there right now. So they will finish out the 24-25 school year at Sanchez and Creekside. We will still have Buckhorn open. Oscar Lawyer students will be there, and I'm assuming that there will be some students from Creekside and Sanchez that will want to move, but I don't know that all of them will move. So we'll give the parent that option, whether they move or they stay till the end of the year. Right now, our Buckhorn, the construction is on time to finish at the end of October. November and December, we'll have to finish up and furnish the center. We must be licensed for preschool through the Department of Social Services. And based on the timeline that the Department of Social Services gives us, when they can come out and do their inspections, we have to be licensed by the Department of Social Services before we move any preschool student in there. So as soon as, that's why it may open in January or whenever we get our license. But as soon as that license is given to us, then we'll be able to move into that building. We're really looking forward to having special education on site, and there will be a need for an administrator assigned to that center. When completed, Buckhorn will be able to provide a more inclusive environment for our young students. Both special education and the preschool department are looking forward to having all 3-year-old children, regardless of their needs, attending Buckhorn. So we have our early literacy instructional coaches. They're funded by school site. It's a grant from the state given to those schools that had low socioeconomics. In 23-24, we were funded for 8 schools, but shortly after we started, one of the school's coaches had moved. So we have currently 7 coaches right now. We will be posting for 2 more coaches. Frank Paul was added this year, so we're going to add Frank Paul to that group of coaches. As a part of this grant, we are all attending a spring professional development offered by the Sacramento County Office of Education in Napa. It's a requirement of our grant, so we are taking classes on Thursday afternoons. So I have 2 TOSAs on special assignment, and this just kind of talks about their differences. They work very closely together, but one is more early learning and the other is more focused on literacy, but they work together, planning a lot of things. One of the things that they do together is we work with our paraeducators, our TK and K paraeducators. We offer them training a day before school starts. It's optional because it's not on their calendar, but we usually get about 90% of them come for that day of training. And then Wednesdays, because it's early release day, we do pull the paraeducators once a month on a Wednesday to work with them, trying to help them, give them strategies to do small group instruction, how do we increase literacy, math skills, and that type of instruction. And that's done by the TOSAs that I have. So this grant is one that I worked with the Monterey County Office of Education, and this year we were funded for $69,000. What we are doing is we are providing a stipend to teachers who are going to school, and it's $300 per unit. So obviously, if they're going to Hartnell, they're getting a lot of money, but if they're going to CSUMB, that's not enough to cover per unit. So it's just an added extra. But due to this grant, we had 3 of our preschool staff. This year, they're out in classrooms. They were currently working with me in preschool, and now I have 1 in TK and 2 in kinder. Next year, we know of 1 staff member that will move from preschool into a TK or kinder classroom. And we have 2 that are working on, one's working on a BA and one's working on getting her, she has a BA, but she needs to do some work before she gets ready to move into a classroom. So we're really proud of this. We work really hard. I have my TOSA out doing professional growth plans with all the preschool staff, whether they choose to retire in 2 years or not. They all have to make a professional growth plan. Like, what do you want to do? What are the things you're interested in learning about? How can we support you? And so we're working really hard, and I'm really proud to say that our staff members are moving from preschool into certificated positions. So that's great for our TK classrooms that need good early learning instructors, and it's good for our district. That's all I have for you.
Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Ratliff. I do have a few questions. I noticed that there's an increase in the instructional coach for early literacy. And we also received a grant for early education teacher development grant. Is this funding going to be continual, or is this a one-time money?
Okay, so the early education teacher grant is for 3 years. And so last year we got 69,000. It's based on our enrollment in preschool and TK. We're in a consortium with about 10 other districts in the county, working with Monterey County for that. So it'll be for 3 years. So we're really trying to encourage those teachers that are ready to try to take your classes now, because as we all know, money comes and money goes. So we're really encouraging them.
Goes to my follow-up question, like, are you aware of any state funding grants that are near coming, so our district can apply for those?
There isn't any currently, but I'm always watching for them. I have my math grant this year was 250,000, I believe. I have to go back. So every year we're always out there looking for how can we support our students, our teachers,
And a question that is not on the presentation, but maybe you know on top of your head, like, as the years have passed, have you seen an increase in our numbers? Have you seen a decrease, or have they stayed constant?
Okay, so I believe we've had an increase in our 4-year-olds. We don't see it in preschool because the preschool numbers look like they're shrinking. We don't see it because they're now in TK. So what we would have served in preschool is now in TK. And those numbers are really increasing, more than what we would serve in our preschool program. Part of that is preschool is income-based, and we do have some funding. The families, have all asked for more funding for preschool. So we've had some ability to help those families that don't quite qualify. They make just over, they're on the border, so we've had an ability to help those families. But TK, there is no income, so it doesn't matter how much you make, you're able to attend TK. The other thing about TK that our preschool program doesn't provide is a longer day. It's an all-day program, and preschool is a 3-hour program.
Thank you, Dr. Ratliff. Mr. Ocampo, any questions or comments?
I'm curious, the increase in the TK, will we also see an increase in kinder or not? Does that translate into the kinder grade?
I don't know, Mr. Cody.
Oh,
No, actually, the kinder classes are shrinking year over year. So we have fewer kids this year than we had last year. We expect fewer next year.
okay.
So the increase in TK that we've seen is in spite of a shrinking number of potential TK students. So.
Well, that's good news. So.
Attendance statewide is shrinking,
Right.
but we went from 8 TK classrooms to 14 last year. We're assuming we're going to have a few more this year also. So our TK is growing, but that's because we're capturing all those preschool age students. But
Yeah.
like you said, everything's decreasing except TK.
Yeah, I think anytime we see an increase or potential increase in students, it's good news, obviously, because we need that. I think I had 2 questions. Let's see if I can get my head here around this thing. The early education teacher development grant, uh, I don't think I quite understood that. Is that money for teachers so they can go to school, or what is it?
So we had the choice. There were about 4 different projects we could do. We could provide professional development. We could hire somebody just to work with our preschool staff to help them navigate how to get into college, or we could provide funds for the actual staff. Our preschool staff, you know, are all classified. They're usually paid a lot less than a certificated teacher. So we're trying to move them over into the certificated world. We know that all TK teachers need to have 24 units of ECE classes. All our preschool staff already have those 24 units. They've already been working with 4-year-olds. Before TK, where did the 4-year-olds go? To the preschool. So they have the experience, they're able to work with them. I'm really proud. We have one that moved from the preschool program that's like an outstanding TK. We send a lot of teachers to go and observe her because she understands 4-year-olds, right? So that we decided we would support those classified employees to help them get more education.
So the grant basically is to help them get more education.
Mhm.
So they can become, I guess it's certified
Mhm.
TK teachers.
Yes,
There's a certification there.
yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. And the other question was, I'm curious, the early literacy instructional coaches that there's obviously, we're seeing an increase in those guys. Do they predominantly provide PD for teachers? Is that what Artosas do?
So they're like our instructional coaches. They work with teachers based on what teachers ask and request. This was new this year, so a lot of them are going through different training, different professional development we're offering to help them get ready to provide that. They are working on coaching cycles with the teachers out in the classrooms to help them. They're helping them with data chats and different things to try to support those teachers. So they are coaches for teachers. They work with teachers.
So their primary function is to do everything they can do to try to get the teachers to be better at increasing the literacy skills of students.
Yes, and they're going through an intense program called Letters. You'll hear a lot about that right now. It's, you know, how everything's the buzzword or what. A lot of college instructors are having to take it. A lot of different states are making their teachers take it. When, unfortunately, pedagogy as far as how do you teach foundational reading skills is not always taught at a college when teachers are getting ready to go out and teach. And so they've missed some of that pedagogy, and that's why we think some of these teachers are not as successful as they could be. It's not their fault. They just were not taught. And so we're putting our literacy coaches through this intense program. It's a lot of work. It's at least 2 to 3 hours a week of classwork that they're doing. And they are learning all that so that they can then go out and support the teachers they work with.
Okay. Sounds very good. Thank you.
Mrs. Gilpas?
Thank you. Thank you for the information. I had about 2, maybe 3 questions. So my understanding is when Buckhorn is built, it's the 3-year-olds, the preschool
Mhm.
students that will be able to go there, right?
Because all the 4-year-olds will be in TK.
Right. So, will any of them, I think you said, will there be busing then for some of them? Or no?
There is no busing in preschool right
Oh,
now.
okay.
There is
So
no
am I
way,
confused?
it's not a function that we do in preschool normally. So if we were to look at that, we would have to see how that works because state preschool, our CSPP contract, there's no busing. We're not supposed to bus. Families are supposed to be signing those children in and out.
Okay, so more than likely, the ones that are going to benefit of that new place is people who live around the area. Right?
That
Because
we
a lot
will,
of our families are low income, correct?
right? And we will be offering an all-day program there. So hopefully those families that need that all-day structure will come and apply.
Okay.
And we're going to try that right away in January when it opens. We're going to open one classroom of an all-day program.
Okay. So then the 3-year-olds that
Mhm.
get to be in preschool, they're in preschool, right? Because I heard you say that in TK, anybody, no matter what your financial stance is,
Mhm.
you can go to TK. But if you go to preschool, your income matters.
Mhm.
So preschool is only for low income.
But we have a community here that supports preschool, so we have the supplemental and concentration grant funding, and so we support anybody who wants preschool in our district.
Oh, that's awesome.
But we have to do, first priority goes to low income, and then we do serve everyone who comes in the door here.
Oh, that's awesome. So what's the percentage, do you know, of parents or families that we serve that are not low income? Oh, you don't have to look it up. You don't
It's
have to-
about 30%.
Oh, great. That's good. Because I know also, I've heard, I never looked it up or anything, but by law, we have to do a certain percentage for those who are not low income anyway, right? Or no? Did that
No.
change? It
No,
was
the
like that.
CSPP contract is only for low income. They have added that we can take, and we have to take students with special needs, IEPs. We do have to take 10% of our population now have to be with an IEP, and we definitely meet that, so that's not a problem. They don't have to meet the income guidelines, but everyone else pretty much does. So no, they didn't change that at all. That's why so many students are showing up in TK,
Mhm.
because they're right on that bubble. But that's what we're using our supplemental concentration grant funding, is to help those families that are on the bubble. We can also use it for what? Our English language learners, right? Our homeless, our foster children. We have 2 foster children in our preschool. So we serve everybody. We try to find programs for everybody who walks in our door.
That's very good, and that's very positive to hear, because it's not the kid's fault his parents are rich,
I
right?
know.
You
And,
know, if he
and
wants
what
to go
is
to
considered
school.
rich, right?
Mhm. But I mean, some people, I mean, because we do want to support our low-income families,
Mhm.
but we also want to support our families that, want the same programs, and sometimes they can't get them because they're in a higher tax bracket. So it's a good feeling to know that we are serving the students in preschool. Now, with those preschool kids, do you have a long waiting list, maybe of those that are not low income that are trying to get in?
We have a waiting list of those children more than any of the others, but we try to serve as many as we can. This year we have 48 in our program. So, I mean, we do what we can to make sure we're serving everyone in the community who walks in our door.
Well, that's good. That's very good to hear. Thank you so much.
Mm.
That answers, I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
I do have one more question,
Okay.
Ted, related to that. I
Sure.
thought you bring that up in school press. So once the Buckhorn Center is open and operational, uh, what if we have an influx of a lot of people wanting to be part of that? How is it going to be decided? Like, is it going to be a lottery of students, or
So
the
we
first
serve
come,
the
first-
low income first, and then because of where it is, the second priority is farm workers. We have to use that as one of our priorities because of the regulations in building that Buckhorn and getting that center, and a lot of regulations around that center. Remember, it happened before I started 6 years ago, right? So you guys have been working on this a long time before I showed up. But that's our second priority. Then we go down the list as people want. But low income, and then our farm worker families. Those are the 2 top priorities.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of interest. So I think the sooner we communicate that to our community, and show them like how we're going to be selecting the students, I think it would have the community understand.
Right. There'll be some changes because what we do now, our 3-hour programs are very good for the school sites. But if I have to drive and drop children off at other sites, I need to have different start times and end times. And so there'll be some work with our unions because we're going to have to change some people's, times around a little bit to serve our families.
Any other questions or comments?
One more question. Just curious, the all-day program you mentioned for the TK, all day is 8 to 3?
Yes.
So they'll be in school 8 to 3.
For
Are-
TK, yes.
TK, are they eligible for any of the
Yes, they
after-school
can,
programs?
ELOP, they're eligible. They just need to fill out the applications.
Okay. Which I guess is good because, you know, parents work, right? And they can pick up their children later. Although I do worry sometimes about young people being under the watchful eyes of teachers from 8 to 6 year after year. I mean, it's like, you know, kids also need their own private time and, you know, and that kind of stuff. I do.
I have my own
know- and
personal feelings,
and don't
but I
get me-
work in education,
Yeah.
so I'm going to say they can fill out a registration.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think all the things we're doing are great things, you know. You know, it's like, you know, kids nowadays, like they're, you know, a lot of kids, they go in at 8, they'll come out to 6. It's a long time, you know. And there have been studies that have shown that it's important that kids have independent playtime when they're not being observed by adults and for their own creativity and such. But, you know, there's studies about everything, right? And, you know, for everything you want to put forth, you can find a study somewhere, right? So, you know, but it's a good thing. It is a good thing. Don't get me wrong.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, board member reporting. Ms. Gilpas, any reports? Mr. Ocampo, any reports?
Oh, yes, actually, yes, I do. En nuevas, ¿verdad? I'll try to keep it short, but just wanted to report that my wife attended and this is long, the Monterey County Safe and Healthy Schools and Communities Leadership Breakfast, which took place on February the 9th. The event was hosted by the Monterey County Office of Education. Now, the Monterey County Safe and Healthy Schools and Communities, it's a multi-agency collaboration. And it involves just about every agency that deals with our young people. We have, you know, social services, we have probation, we have child welfare, we have the police department. Our district is also a part of the coalition, and many other school districts are part of the coalition. There's also obviously behavioral health, you know, which has an emphasis on well-being because the coalition deals with trying to increase safety and well-being for the community and for schools. Now, it's a relatively new collaboration. It's about 18 months old, and it's modeled after the San Mateo County Board of Education Coalition. I think there were a number of speakers. One of the persons that spoke was our district attorney, Janine, not sure if it's Passioni or Passioni. I think it's Passioni, yes, our district attorney. And she gave a presentation about some of the major issues that are affecting our youth. She indicated that the use of fentanyl apparently is an upbeat in our community, and more young people are overdosing on fentanyl. She also indicated that there was an increase in children bringing weapons to schools, such as guns and such as knives. And the last thing she spoke about was an increase in something called sextortion among young people, which is kind of an unusual name for a thing. But if you look it up at Google, sextortion is defined as the practice of extorting someone by threatening to reveal evidence of some kind of provocative, you know, photos or sexual activity. But the way that it was explained to me is that that when it involves young people, that it's a little bit different. Apparently, it involves young people in a relationship, and part of the relationship is these young people will send provocative pictures to one another. Now, when the relationship comes to an end, then sometimes the provocative photos are put on social media as a way of extorting revenge. So it's kind of a relationship that's it's a good relationship, but then the young people commit the error of sending each other provocative pictures. There's a breakup, and then for the sake of revenge, one of the people in the relationship puts it in social media as a way of exacting revenge on the partner that broke up for them. And apparently that's I think what the district attorney was talking about when she used the term sextortion, that particular term. So in closing, I think I'd just like to say that I'm glad that we're part of the coalition and that we have a seat at the table, for this important coalition. And the coalition obviously offers a lot of many resources that can increase the safety and the well-being of our students, staff, and parents. I don't know who it is from our staff that sits at the meetings of the coalition, but I'm sure we have a staff member that goes to that.
Yes, we do. The PIO, Ms. Melendez.
Oh, Ms. Melendez, okay, excellent choice. Okay, good. All right, so that's my report. It was a great meeting. It was, we met at the Steinbach, not the Steinbach Center, but what's it called? It's where, I think it's the Steinbach Center. Is that what it's called, the police have left it? It used to be sorry? No, we met, I think it was a Steinbach Center at one time, then it was owned by the California State University. It's a center right at the end of Main Street, right next to the cinema. Beautiful location. The food was great. There was a room full of people from every imaginable agency in town. I know Mr. Koenig was going to go. You missed a good event, sir. My wife and I both went, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. So that's my report.
Thank you. I don't have anything to report. Mr. Koenig, do you have anything to report?
No, I don't have anything to report.
Thank you. Moving on to item consent agenda. Okay, I need an approval for the consent agenda. I
So
need a
moved.
motion.
Oh, sorry. Are you still
No.
talking?
No, thank you, Ms. Gilpes. So I have a motion made by Ms. Gilpes.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ocampo. Any questions or comments? Ready for the vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Moving on to item 6, business services. We have information items for reviewing of the Alesta Union School District's 2022-23 Independent Financial Audit Report. And we have item B, information review performance audit report for Frank Paul Elementary Schools. They're informational items. There's no need to vote. Moving on to item 7, administrative services. 7A, action item, resolution number 2324-15, ordering an election, requesting the county elections department to conduct the election and requesting consolidation of the election. I need a motion.
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Ocampo. Motion made by Mr. Ocampo. Second by Ms. Gilpes. Any questions or comments? Okay, move for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries 3-0. B, action item, CSBA Delegate Assembly 2024 ballot. I need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we elect Jessica Hare to be the candidate for the CSBA Delegate Assembly.
Okay. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Gilpes. Comments or questions? Mr. Ocampo?
Yeah, I was just curious, this CSBA Delegate Assembly, to be a member of the assembly, sounds really interesting. I don't know if maybe at some point in the future, somebody on this board might have an interest in running for that, I think it involves, I think it involves two mandatory meetings in Sacramento, I believe. And so the person that's a delegate takes part in voting for the officers of the assembly for the CSBA, and they also direct policy for CSBA. They're part of deciding what policies the CSBA will kind of focus for the upcoming year. But I just find it really interesting. I'd just like to throw it out there that maybe in the future somebody from this board might want to go out there.
So I have a motion by Mr. Ocampo and a second by Ms. Gilpes. I'll move for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. C, action item, revised board policies, community relations, business slash non-instructional, 1240, 3400. I need a motion. Motion by Ms. Gilpes,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Ocampo. Questions or comments? None. Moving for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0. We have the item 8, future agenda items. You can see at your pleasure there. Are there any requests from board members to agendize the presentation at this time? Ms. Gilpes?
Excuse me, well, I had a comment first. That's an awful lot of board agenda items clumped into just two. I did have a conversation with Mr. Koenig about that, and I don't know how that's gonna happen, but that's, if you were to count these agenda items individually, it's like 7, and it's not really 2. I don't know how much work that causes for your staff, Mr. Koenig, but when I did bring it up to Mr. Koenig, um, we talked about the possibility, gently suggesting that some items that board members want to put on the agenda, instead of causing all this work for cabinet or superintendent, they could be information items that Mr. Koenig could share with us in our board updates. For example, the one on under business division services, the use of facilities by the community. I think that doesn't really have to be a presentation or something that, I mean, I'm sure the policies exist. I'm sure just information to the board. I did have a gripe about that, a gentle gripe that that one has been there since like October. And there's a lot of other things that have come up that maybe someone might think they're not that important, but I thought that was very important, that some community members are not coming to us because they think that we charge for the AEFRCs or any other venue within the school district. So I wanted to clear that one up specifically. And I do kind of resent gently that it's taken so long to clear that up. So I'm hoping that by saying that publicly, it kind of puts me in front of the line a little bit, because it's important. It really is important. But when I just think that's an awful lot of stuff, President Mercado, and just something to consider on that one. And at some point, I think I want and also, and I'm going to practice right now. I don't want an agenda. It's not an agenda item, but an information item. I would like on the pizza parties that are going to be a pilot program by the food services. And kudos to the food services for wanting to have pizza parties for perfect attendance. And I know it's a pilot program. It's for the classroom and even for rewarding students that are present all at once for no tardies. And I think that's wonderful. But also, I think when a student is late to school, it's not his or her fault. It's usually the parent, and I'm not saying fault as a negative, but usually parent could have a flat tire, parent could have 4 kids they're taking to other schools. I mean, you're rewarding the class for, I don't know, maybe we can look into, when you discuss it with them, into the efforts that the students put in instead of, there's some little kids that are never going to have a pizza party because they're never going to be on time and it's not their fault. So it's hard to, and I think as a classroom, you're seeing the kids next door, they're getting a pizza party. That's wonderful. But to get how many kids do they have, Mrs. Anso, in a classroom? 28? To have perfect attendance, to have a pizza party. Well, maybe not up to me, but maybe for effort or, or they're doing so much better than last time so that at some point, all the kids can have that. And that's my viewpoint. And not saying that because I don't like pizza. I think, and I don't, but still the kids, it's just hard. It's not their fault that they don't get to school on time. It's not their fault. What if they're sick? Well, you want a kid who's maybe never gets pizza at home and is going to want to go to school to not ruin it for the rest of the kids. I mean, those are just things to think about because they're little kids and they all want to be rewarded. Maybe we could reward them all for different times find different things in the classroom to reward them. This is important. And I think the efforts by our food service personnel is awesome. I'm just concerned with those that it's not their fault. It's, you know, we can't, and then so they don't, and then can you imagine maybe the bullying that goes on? Because the kids know, oh, well, Johnny was absent. That's why we didn't get our pizza party. And I've just seen those things working in the middle school for 30 years that has happened. And maybe it happens with the older kids and not the younger kids. But yet I think it's something to think about. So I would like to, not an agenda item, but an informational item, maybe in the board update, to see what ideas can be come up with, if the other board members are in agreement. Thank you.
Well, I do want to comment on the agenda items. There's been some agenda items that have been put on the side. I mean, like for instance, the schools, because I'm of the opinion that, you know, sometimes we do have a lot of items to review for presentation. So, at least for me, I have been picking two. So if you notice the pattern so far, the only exception have been one day, but those are required by law. But other than that, I try to make it to no more than two presentations. So here we do see many different items, but you know, my goal is to have two presentations per board meeting unless otherwise required by law.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely. There are, but there's some listed there that, there's 7 different things listed there. I mean, I'm just saying that I think we just have to keep an eye on that because, you know, they can take a long time. But they are important. That's all. I'm not saying we shouldn't have them. And I think we did agree as a board before to have no more than 2 presentations, you know, and so I see Mr. Koenig smiling. So. But thank you for your time.
Did you want to add anything, Mr. Ocampo?
Yeah, I think, you know, Lupe sometimes, well, usually she's right on that. Usually. But I think that, yeah, I am totally in favor of fast tracking the facilities, you know, the presentation on the facilities and whether we charge or don't charge, fast tracking it in some fashion. I don't know what that fashion would look like, but I do think it's an important issue because there seems to be a lot of uncertainty in the community as to whether we charge or we don't charge, and there are people in the community who believe we charge. I don't believe we do, but and if we don't, and I don't think we do, then we need to make that known so that, you know, more people will come and use our facilities. I think it's an important issue. The whole thing on the pizza thing, you know, I think yeah, I don't see why we can't, why it has to be 100%. I mean, if there has been improvement, you can set some kind of a percentage increase, establish a percentage increase. If a class has this percentage increase, then they also get a pizza party. You know, there's an improvement in their attendance because, you know, that's a true and sad story about the young man that never gets the pizza party. Anyway, so I think that I agree with my colleague here. Yeah.
All right. Moving on to future meeting dates. You can see them at your pleasure in the written there. Moving on to item 10, public comments for closed session agenda items only. There will be a 2-minute limit for individuals and a 20-minute limit on total public comments. There is no ceding of one's time to other individuals. Individuals wishing to address the Board of Trustees on closed session agenda items may do so at this time. Starting time, 6:33. Ending time, 6:34. I adjourn to closed session at 6:34. And there will be a 10-minute break and closed session will begin promptly at 6:44. Thank you.